Hello and welcome to Why Leadership Fails, a podcast with no typical gyan, no stereotypical tales of glory. Instead, we bring to you unscripted, unfiltered conversations about real-life experience of influential leaders, embracing failures, navigating challenges, and redefining success. I am your host, Bhuman Dani, VP Digital Business at Hindustan Times. Our esteemed guest today comes with a rich background of consulting and entrepreneurship. He is the founder and CEO of WickedGud, a D2C startup that makes healthy noodles and pasta. This startup is also known for the Shark Tank fame and celebrity Shilpa Shetty connection. Let's welcome Mr. Bhuman Dani. Hi Bhuman, welcome to Why Leadership Fails.
Thank you.
So Bhuman, to kick things off, and starting with your career journey. So from management consulting as a job to entrepreneurship, where you've probably founded 2 startups within a span of 5 years. How did that path unfold? And, how did it really shape your perspective towards business and entrepreneurship?
So the intent was always to do entrepreneurship post B school. But at B school, I met these wonderful people, so-called consultants. And I thought that might not hurt. Doing it for a few years will definitely give me some skill sets. Of course, those interviews are very tough to crack. Gave a shot at it, happened. So then did it for a few years. And that's when I realized that this is something that I think if given an opportunity, everyone should explore. It really gives a very good foundation of understanding of business, of communication, of how to deal with various settings and how to come up with a structured framework. And I think it really helped me. But the entrepreneurial bug, always bites, so always was looking for the next big opportunity. Found one, came back to India. Friends and family called me a fool, but I was very passionate of what I wanted to build. And that was the start of TGL, my first startup. It was in the premium tea and coffee space. We relinquished control and partially exited to Nest Wadia from the Wadia group. Now we're building the second one. We were selling tea and coffee at about 18,000 rupees a kilo back then. So very premium clientele. With WickedGud, it's a little more mass premium. So ensure that we do things right from day zero. So we had a bunch of consultants who really helped out from day zero. Whether it was Rinka Banerjee, who was the R&D director at Unilever at one point, or Ashwini Deshpande, who's the founder at Elephant Design, or Santosh Desai, who's the founder at and the managing director at Future Consulting, Future Brands. So it really helped us build this foundation of understanding consumer mindset of the categories that we want to get after. And of course, it's most important to understand which categories to go after and which to miss. So I think that was the foundation of what we did. We only had a thought process of guilt-free eating. How can I, in high indulgent categories, how can I build something where after consumption people don't feel guilty? That was the core of what we wanted to build. And then of course we shut ourselves in a room for a few hours and then looked at all the categories that went from an elimination methodology, where we looked at various parameters, market size, growth rate, net operating margin, penetration, both online, offline, AOV since it was an online first brand. Sure. And I mean, as much as I'd love to change the world, there are limitations from a manufacturing perspective, from an ingredient perspective. For example, we looked at sugar-free ketchup. But to build it, you need a capex of $1 million. So couldn't do it at day zero. So that got eliminated. I think the biggest learning we've had is in the consumer space, in F&B in India, the 2 biggest drivers of consumption are taste and price. I mean, you may be supremely healthy. Sure. I'm a health food founder talking, but health is more a discovery. Taste and price are at the core. Sure. So whatever we would build, we would have to have taste and price at the core, with health more of a discovery. So if you look at any of the packaging that we have for any of our products, you'll see there's a lot of focus on, the appetizing look of the bowl, or the appetizing look, or even having a celebrity Shilpa Shetty on the pack, rather than, focus and harp on health, which of course is our differentiating factor.
Yeah, sure.
But the average mindset of an Indian consumer is, oh, by the way, this is a great product, it's affordable, it's very tasty, and by the way, it's also healthy. So it's more, a discovery than a consumption driver.
Sure. Interesting. So you spoke from the audience perspective, the consumer perspective. But when we speak about dhanda, right? When we speak about business, this instant noodle category, I presume, is about $2 billion odd in India, almost around 17,000 crores.
Right.
And it seems to be a consolidated market, right? With prominent key players. So anybody foraying into it as an entrepreneur would think, यार ये तो बहुत risky business है, इसमें बहुत investment लगेगा, because to compete with the legacy brands. So are you someone who, has a huge risk appetite? What was your thought, because you really took this fiercely risky decision to enter into this segment?
Well, see, the intent is never to compete with anyone. It's to coexist. So when, as a startup founder, your intent, your end goal is to get 2 or 3% of the market share. So if something is worth 15,000 crore, even 3% of it is meaningful revenue. And it's not only noodles that we are building as a category. The overarching theme of the brand is wicked taste and good ingredients. So anything that lies at the confluence of the two, we'd like to enter in terms of categories.
Sure.
Every household has a problem, I'm sure, including yours and mine. Kids want to have junk food every day. Mothers want to give them healthy food. Kids end up dictating consumer behavior. Mothers end up domesticating junk. So if you can create a win-win situation by having the best of both worlds, then I think you're solving a real life problem. Now, whether it's noodles as a category, it's pasta as a category, chips as a category, chocolate spreads as a category, whatever in future, the overarching theme has to be wicked taste and good ingredients. So we never really saw ourselves as a noodle company.
Okay.
Yes, noodles was one of the categories. Even if we can penetrate 2 to 3%, 5 to 6 years from today, I think we'd be successful in what we want to build as a vision.
Sure.
The other piece, I think, even if you look at the noodle category and look at sheer data, I think 2017 or earlier, Maggi was the leader. I think it had 83% market share from what I remember.
Yeah.
But today it has about 60 to 70% market share. So whereas it's 13% gone, there have been new entrants like Samyang, Coca, Nongshim, which have really, shaken the entire market. I think individually all of these brands would be 50 to 100 crore plus, with Nongshim leading the pack. So there is a lot that's happening.
Korean one.
These are the Korean noodles, correct? So there's a lot. I mean, Netflix, K-pop, of course, all of these factors do influence. But Gen Z consumers think very differently than, some others, right? So, apart from the peer pressure, there's also a lot of mindset change where they don't want to consume the same pack of noodles or the same brand of noodles that their parents have been having growing up. So they're looking for something different. They're looking for something newer. Health, of course, is very important to them because they all want to be really fit. They all want to hit the gyms. So that became the core of what we wanted to build. A, to cater to the Gen Z youngsters who will then put pressure with their mothers, and B, of course, it's mom friendly because of the ingredients that we use. We've created pasta and noodles, which are the epitome of indulgence in the Indian context, with dal, chawal, chana, atta, millets and oats, the basic constituents of an average Indian meal. I remember Britannia had this ad a few years ago. 1 glass of milk is equals to 1 slice of cheese. So for us, it's 1 Indian thali is equals to 1 bowl of our pasta or noodles, because it's made out of dal, chawal, chana, oats and atta.
But these are the pros, right? So you very well define the pros of entering or foraying into the segment. Did you also evaluate certain cons, and what were those?
So let me tell you, right? In the journey of every startup, you learn every day because you fail every day.
Yeah.
The product that we launched this company with back in 2021, it's discontinued today. So that's how we've also shifted and pivoted. I think what's more important is to keep your eyes and ears open to very, very clearly, and as a founder, you're very emotional about what you build because you have the founder syndrome, which means you'll love everything that you built. But it's very important to remove the emotional aspect and to think very nonchalantly and think very straight as to what is being accepted, what are the drivers in which those products are being accepted, and then how do you overcome it. So initially when we started, and I must tell you, 70% of founders don't have an answer to these 4 basic questions at day 0. what is your buyer persona like, and what are their likes, dislikes. How does your product translate into the need of your target audience? What should the messaging strategy be to touch the heart, soul and nerve of your target audience? And what does the brand stand for through the life cycle of your target audience? I think if you can understand these 4 questions at day 0 or earlier as you can, a lot of your failures can be eliminated. Coming back to our example, we started this brand with gluten-free pasta. Pasta made with chickpea, red lentil and brown, dal, chawal and chana. The basic, and there was no atta in it, there was no wheat in it. As much as I can still swear by the product, it did not scale beyond a point. Because in India, there are still tier 2 and tier 3 city consumers who cook pasta in a cooker. They don't really know how to make it because they feel it's rice or any of the other products that they make. So if you cook gluten-free product in a cooker, it's going to become mushy and disintegrate. So we figured that very early in the game. 6 to 8 months were lost, no doubt, but that's the learning that we had as a founding team. And then we moved on. And today we have a product which is well accepted and there's great repeat buying. And now people, when they consume our product, and if you blindfold them and if the same sauce is used for one of the competing brands, I'm sure no one will know the difference. So coming from there to here has been a huge journey. Of course, there are good things that we did, and I think that's why we still exist. But there were a lot of bad things that we did. But it's more important to understand when to convert those bad things into good things. The faster you get it, and when to pivot and when to move on without actually having a huge impact on the entire ecosystem.
Well, that's fantastic. I think, every entrepreneur should definitely keep this in mind. And you mentioned this one statement that every entrepreneur fails every day, right? So if we talk about one instance, or a failure that you actually encountered in this entire journey, everybody hits a roadblock. What was that one instance where you felt that, okay, this is something which is, in the doldrums? How did you navigate through it, and what was the learning from the process?
Well, every day. I mean, there are so many examples. Why I just gave you one, right? The product we launched this entire brand with is discontinued today. As much as I can still swear by the product. But I think I'll give you another example, right? So I believe in this phrase, and a lot of food entrepreneurs will also resonate with what I say. If you built the perfect product, you've launched too late. So I think the quest for improvement is a given for any entrepreneur. A lot of people try to perfect and try to spend a lot of time in getting it right, but you're never going to make a product which is going to be right for everyone. So it's very important to first launch, take the plunge, and then periodically with time try to improve it in every run. For example, we launched our product, the noodles, in 2022. The first product that we launched versus what we have today, there's a huge change. The product that we launched back then, we still have counter samples of those, and the product that we have today is a world of difference. The core theme, of course, remains the same, which is it's way healthier than what's available. There's not a drop of oil used, there's not a drop of maida used. So the core theme is the same, but the taste, the way to cook it, the appearance, the texture is very different.
Sure.
See, when you're always going to create a disruption or an innovation in a category, it is going to take time for people to adapt to it. People are so used to having a fried maida noodle that for them to have something different is going to take some time. So it's all about us as founders, or rather anyone in this space, to make it as similar to their existing product as possible.
Agreed.
Now, it's impossible to mimic the leaders. They're leaders for a reason. But I think if you go out in the market and if you're looking for the closest product to Maggi today in terms of taste, and at the same time have some health benefits in it, WickedGud is the closest you can probably get.
Sure.
And we're very proud of that.
Agreed.
That even though in a market where, so we made the noodle using a SCAD technology, steaming, convection, air drying. So not a drop of oil is used in the entire manufacturing process, resulting in the saturated fat to be 96% lower as compared to mass brands.
That's a good thing, because in any sector, I feel in any industry today, right, if you're disrupting a certain segment, technology becomes really important. And that pivot, it's not just about the food startup, but any segment today, if you don't pivot, and we've got so many examples. Like I have worked in Yahoo earlier, very close, the brand is very close to my heart. But unfortunately, because the pivot didn't happen, we've seen what happened with those brands, though being a technology startup.
Correct.
So completely agree to your point, Bhuman, and thank you for sharing that instance with us. So moving on from here, how did Shark Tank really happen for you? And what was the reaction when it comes to stakeholders with respect to investors, employees, when you did not secure funding and there was kind of a rejection on national television?
I think that's another failure story, right? Clear. So we already had Aman on the cap table. He had invested in the pre-seed round way before Shark Tank ever happened. We had seen the success of season 1, and whether or not brands got funded, they saw a huge spike in their orders, in their sales, in their branding, in their Instagram following. So we said, it might be helpful if we, appear. Even though we had cash in bank because we had just raised a round before that, I still thought it would only help the brand if it sort of applied. So then there is a regular application process. You got to fill up some links, you got to fill up answer some questions. Thankfully, we got selected. And there were 3 or 4 rounds of screening. We had to go to various places where they interviewed us. They asked us a lot of questions, both personal and professional. And at the end of it, we were shortlisted to be in the final. And in the grand finale episode. So we appeared in the grand finale episode. Unfortunately, in those months, we were probably having the worst of our months in terms of the numbers because it was way off. We had just launched gluten-free products into the market that had not really done well. So we were about to discontinue them and get newer products. Now, whenever you launch newer products, there's a lot of investment that entails. So back then, for every 100 rupees that I earned, I probably lost 50 rupees in CM2, which is contribution margin 2 after your advertising, and about 150 rupees in EBITDA. Huge. So that was the extent of burn. I myself was not confident even mumbling those numbers, but I mean, you got to say what is the truth. But we had a very good brand and we had a lot of confidence in what we were building, and the entire packaging, the entire offtake, whatever had happened, even with the gluten-free product, was quite promising. There were a lot of external stakeholders. These are all our online partners who still had faith in us, despite us rejecting or discontinuing the product that we've launched the product brand with. Sure. So we went very confidently. Of course, the numbers did not add up, and so none of the sharks invested. And I remember that entire day, I was just shell-shocked. Very upset as to why never something happened. And yes, we were, there is always light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a process. Sure. And the timing of the entire episode was not the best. But what we did is we came out 6 months post the Shark Tank viewing. We are CM2 positive today. Nice. We have grown almost 6 times in terms of our top line. We got Shilpa Shetty to endorse the products, and not only endorse as a brand ambassador, but also an investor in the brand. So that also, added trust to us. Obviously, Shark Tank gave us a good platform, but her coming on board just after Shark Tank also increased the trust among consumers. It only, looking back, I think it was a great opportunity that Sony gave us. And I think a lot of startups should definitely try to appear on it. Whether or not they get funding is fine. Failure is part of life. But
like they say, right, that after every no, there is a yes around the corner.
100%.
As long as you keep moving.
Absolutely. So I think that was our experience at Shark Tank. I think very good. And I think every startup founder, especially if you're in a consumer startup, should definitely apply for Shark Tank.
Sure. Sounds interesting. In fact, Bhuman, listening to you, I'm also curious to know, you spoke about your struggles. What about the investor struggles? Like Aman, I remember he mentioned that अगर मैं होता आज और ये पिच सुनता तो मैं भी इन्वेस्ट नहीं करता, बट मेरा पैसा डबल करके आना. हाँ.
Well, so I mean, see, investors come in at different points of the game. For people who come in at pre-seed round, it's relatively easier to double their money than people who come in later, because as and when you grow, when you have no revenue, you're valued at X. When you have 5 times, 6 times the revenue, you're valued obviously much more than X.
Sure.
So Aman invested in the pre-seed round. So by the time we were on Shark Tank, it was already 2 times the money that he came on. And now probably it's even more. So I think from an investor perspective, thankfully we've got really good investors on the cap table who've been really supportive of us. Because initially the burn was very high and it wasn't making sense from a capital efficiency perspective. But I think over the last 6 months, a lot of those things have been, made better. And going forward, given how we are expanding in the retail business, I think, time will tell, but I think it'll only be very good because we'll become EBITDA positive soon. And once that happens, then I don't think we would need to raise any more funds.
Oh, nice.
And then, that journey of, the next phase of growth will start.
So speaking about the next phase of growth, right, where we just discussed that innovation is the key. And there was a suggestion that was given again on Shark Tank saying that aap apna dhanda reset karke aao. So what are you really looking at in terms of the next, half a decade in terms of innovating new products, coming up with new range?
So I think firstly we had to, change some of our numbers, the way they added up. There was a lot of expense on certain things. So there was a lot of optimization on a lot of areas, whether it's logistics, whether it's our gross margin, whether it was the advertising spend, many things. Of course, Shark Tank gave us that upliftment in terms of top line as well. So everything sort of started to make sense. But I think overall, the DNA of the company changed post that Shark Tank episode, right? Because everyone realized that at this stage and at this rate, you won't survive. And so thankfully, I actually thank all the sharks to have rejected us, because that gave us the opportunity to come out and show our true colors. And today, I'm sure if we go back to the Shark Tank, I'm sure all of the sharks will invest in the company, given how the numbers have panned out in the last 6 months.
And the lessons you've learned, right?
And the lessons we've learned. And more importantly, how this failure has helped them to become successful.
True.
So now they don't get bogged down by small failures. When they have small failures, they're like, okay, we'll figure it out, we'll come out of this.
Sure.
Earlier, that wasn't the case because people, come from different backgrounds, different parts of the country. Now today we have a team of 60 who are all very dedicated and in fact embrace failures. And I've made a culture where failure is celebrated.
Interesting.
So that we can come out of it and look at our next step and come out victorious. In terms of what we're doing next, in terms of innovation, in a food product, you got to keep
evolving consumer preference perspective as well, because that's constantly evolving.
Absolutely. So when we came in Shark Tank, we only had pasta and noodles. In November 2023, we launched chips. In 3 months of our launch, we've sold more than 3 lakh packs of it. So that's really done very, very well. Sure. The price point, everything, of course, I won't go into details, but the taste, the price point and the health aspect is in the money. Fried chips have 44% oil. Baked chips have 20% oil. These are made using a popped technology. And so it's only 12% oil. And even the oil we use is not palm oil. It's sunflower oil. So the saturated fat is significantly lower. Predominantly made out of chickpea and not potato. So way healthier than a fried potato chip.
Sure.
So given that, I think the next in our sort of phase of growth will be cup noodles. So very similar to the existing pack, but in a different form, because cup noodles in today's age is really moving, not only in the institution business, which is airlines and etc., but also in retail. There's a huge demand. We are there in about 2,000 stores in India today. Most of our GT general trade retailers are demanding for these cup noodles. So that's something that we are definitely looking at. And the other is chocolate spread. So probably a healthier version of the Nutella without any refined sugar and refined oil, because all of these products are dominated with 4 things: maida, oil, sugar and chemicals. If we can try and eliminate all of this, it becomes a great win-win situation in every household.
So increasing the products in the current range as well as also further broadening, moving into savories as well as sweet.
That is correct.
Awesome. Sounds good. And, speaking about consumer preference, Bhuman, I think it's important now, and, consumers are the most relevant part of any business. So we move to our next segment, which is called Janta Unfiltered, where we get our audience voice into this conversation.
Lovely.
And via this, we call in queries from our audiences and we put it forth to our guest as is, because this particular podcast is all about unfiltered conversations.
I truly believe consumers are actual investors more than the investors themselves.
Of course. So great. So let's hear the question from our audience. I'm going to read it out to you.
Sure.
All right. This question comes from Sapna from Bangalore. So the question reads, congratulations on securing an investment from Bollywood actor Shilpa Shetty for WickedGud. Can you share more about how this partnership came about and how you envision leveraging her involvement to further grow the brand?
Well, so this is something that everyone asks us, right? So if you read a little about Shilpa and the brand she endorses, she doesn't endorse anything that she can't use in her home. So she's very, very anal, and she's a embodiment of health in this country.
Absolutely.
We've seen her on platforms with Baba Ramdev doing yoga. At the same time, we've seen her hitting the gym and doing a lot of weights and what kind of training, right? There are these challenges she keeps doing, which I can't even think of following. So, and she's a mother of two very wonderful kids. So overall, as a brand, because we cater to kids, mothers and health, this seemed to be a perfect, amalgamation. So Shilpa was actually a consumer of our product. We would see Shilpa Shetty, on our website orders, but because it's a common name, we never really thought it was her. And then one day her manager reached out to us asking, if we would get her on board as an ambassador. So a consumer becoming an investor, which is why I said consumers are your real investors, is the exact story of what happened with Shilpa. And I think initially we were a little on the fence because we thought it's a little too early. Typically you get a brand ambassador when your valuation crosses 100, 200, 300 crores. We were very early in the game. Shark Tank had just happened. It was huge rejection. All of us were demotivated. And at the same time, we had Shilpa Shetty approach us to become our ambassador. So took some time, but we had a common connect, which is Titan Capital. So she's invested in Mamaearth, and one of the first investors in Mamaearth was Titan Capital. So through them, we had a nice conversation, and the rest is history. I think the best decision, apart from, of course, being on Shark Tank and building the wonderful products we've done, is getting Shilpa Shetty on board that time in the, that early in the game. I think, again, if I were to give advice to any of the startups, please do get ambassadors early in the game who believe and who truly understand the vision of your company, because it'll only take it to the next level.
Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing this story with us. And thank you, Sapna, for sharing this question. I think it was an interesting question, and I hope that your query has been addressed. Thank you. All right, great, Bhuman. So from here, we move on to a fun segment, because leaders are allowed to have some fun as well.
Can't wait.
It's called the 60-second spin. And in this segment, I'm going to throw many questions at you. You're going to answer it in one simple word, one statement, and let's be as prompt as possible, as quick as possible.
Done.
Are you ready for the challenge?
Sure.
Great. Let's begin. The obvious, noodles or pasta?
Noodles.
One key essential to building a D2C brand today?
Cash efficiency.
Number of rejections you have faced from investors?
Every day.
Strangest customer feedback you ever received for your startup?
आप लोग झूठ बोल रहे हो, ये तो मैदा का नूडल है, ये हो ही नहीं सकता, इसमें मैदा नहीं है.
Because of the taste.
Because of the taste.
One unique opportunity and one challenge that young entrepreneurs face in India's startup ecosystem today?
Fundraising is more important than anything else. I think that's the biggest sham in the startup ecosystem. I value bootstrapped entrepreneurs way higher than any of the guys who've raised funds. Funding is a means to the end and not the end itself. I think that's the biggest learning.
Agreed. If you could invent a new flavor of pasta, what would it be?
Interesting. That's a tough one. Can I talk about noodles instead of pasta? I think...
Sure, go ahead.
A cheese peri-peri noodle would sound really good. I don't see many people doing it. We've actually attempted doing it at our noodle bar at Andheri Infinity Mall.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. Best piece of advice you ever received?
Go big or go home.
Nice. Great. So you answered 7 questions. So well done. And with this, we come to the end of 60 seconds. So time up. Thank you so much, Bhuman. And with this, we move to the last segment, which is called Expert Edge. Basically, here, I would like you to share one quick thought on why leadership fails and one mantra for being an effective leader.
So I think leadership generally fails. People come to you every day. When you're a leader, people look up to you. They look up to you to solve their problems.
Yeah.
So in any organization, you'll have a lot of people coming to you with problems. if they stop coming to you with problems, that's when leadership's failed, because either they feel you're not capable to solve their problems, or they feel you don't really care. So I think it's very important to have that communication going, to not have those layers of hierarchy, especially in a startup. I can only talk about that.
Sure.
So be very open, be very accommodating, and at the same time try to empower people and explain them that the only success in a startup is how do you respond to failures.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail in the coffin. Great, sounds good. I think this was really fun. And I would like to thank you so much for sharing your insights and, candid experiences with us. We wish you the very best in your entrepreneurship journey from the team of Why Leadership Fails. Thanks so much for joining in.
Thank you so much. It was lovely being here.
Thank you so much to the audience for staying with us. Do not forget that behind every no, there is a yes just around the corner, as long as you keep moving forward. If you resonated with this episode, do like, share it with your network, and drop a comment with one instance where you faced the no and how did you deal with it. Well, your thoughts are important to us, and who knows, this may actually inspire others. Let's foster a community of support and empowerment. Stay tuned for our next episode, which has engaging conversations and at the same time, some quirkiness. Until then, all you leaders out there, keep slaying, keep inspiring, and continue leading the way. This is me, Bhavna Lalchandani, signing off.